Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Brilliant as the Sun, Retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 5, the Universal Order. We are going to be reading from chapter 3, Vishnu Benedicts Nabhi. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhaite girim yat kripatamam bande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hari Om Tat Sat. Parikshit stroked his chin thoughtfully. Why was Shukadev speaking about a lusty man like Agnidhra? What could come of such talk? Surely his sons would be equally materialistic. Understanding his thoughts, Shukadev smiled. Listen patiently, for one gains a significant benefit from hearing about Agnidhra's descendants. Verse 1. After his father's departure, Agnidhra's eldest son Nabhi ruled the kingdom. Some years passed and his wife Meru Devi had still not borne him a son. So he approached Lord Vishnu. Together with his queen, he observed strict. Verse 2. He fulfilled all 7 requirements. Qualified priests, gave sufficient charity, and observed all the rules of worship. Krishna is independent and does not always reveal himself, even if one performs the external facets of worship correctly. However, King Nabhi's faith and love evoked Krishna's mercy, desiring to please his devotee. The affectionate Lord Vishnu appeared to King Nabhi in his unconquerable and captivating 4-handed form. On seeing him, King Nabhi became very much satisfied. Please listen as I describe what transpired. Verse 3. A dazzling effulgence lit up the sky. King Nabhi squinted and shielded his eyes. Slowly the brilliance materialized into an exquisite 4-armed form holding a conch shell, lotus, disc, and club. He was dressed in yellow silk and garlanded with forest flowers, with a beautiful helmet, earrings, bangles, belt, pearl, necklaces, armlets, ankle bells, and other ornaments studded with gleaming jewels. As he descended, Nabhi noticed the famous Srivatsa on his chest and the Kaustubh gem around his neck. The king prostrated himself, did the Dandavats. All glories to Lord Vishnu. All glories to Lord Vishnu. The priests and ministers followed Nabhi's example. Tears of joy poured from their eyes as they rose to worship Vishnu. The rituals completed, Nabhi stood before Vishnu with folded hands, his head bowed. My Lord, I cannot express my happiness. I feel like a poor man who has suddenly received great riches. His voice choked. Unable to continue, he beckoned to the chief priest to speak. Verses 4 and 5, the priest said, Most venerable one, we are your humble servants. Although you are fully self-satisfied, out of your causeless mercy, please accept your servants' offerings. We cannot understand your transcendental form, so we can only offer our repeated respects as instructed by the Vedas and eminent authorities. Vishnu held out a graceful hand, his rings and bangles sparkling. You are my learned devotees. Your knowledge is perfect. Why do you hesitate to praise me? Lord, in the material world, we praise you by drawing comparison with material phenomena. For example, we compare your beautiful face to the moon. Such comparisons do you know justice? For your name, form, and qualities descend all material conceptions. Vishnu smiled. Why not describe me in spiritual terms? The chief priest hung his head. Unfortunately, our minds are absorbed in the world of matter. It is impossible for a conditioned soul to conceive of spirit. Vishnu said, "So you cannot say anything about me?" The priest was silent for a moment, then smiling raised his hand. "We can describe your transcendental qualities, such as your affection for your devotees. Because of this affection, you destroy the sins of anyone who even partially glorifies you." Vishnu smiled. Yes, thank you. Can you think of my other qualities? Verse 6, encouraged the chief priest said, "You are the Supreme Lord, completely self-satisfied. But you always reciprocate your devotees' love even when they are poor and can offer you only a tulsi leaf, a little water, a twig bearing fresh leaves, or a little newly grown grass. Still, if offered with love, you accept it. This is your kindness upon your devotee." Verse 7, he lowered his head. "Unfortunately, we have no devotion, therefore I fear there is no value of all these elaborate arrangements we have made for your worship. How can any of this possibly please you when we offer it without genuine devotion?" Verse 8, as he went on glorifying Vishnu, the Brahmin trembled with ecstasy. "Dear Lord, at every moment you increase in opulence by your own self-sufficient power. You are the very form of eternal and unlimited bliss. In contrast, we always seek material enjoyment. You have no need for our offering, but we make them hoping to receive your benedictions." Vishnu smiled. "If that is true and you have no devotion, how is that out of satisfaction I have appeared before you?" Verse 9, the priest looked at Vishnu with tear-filled eyes. "Lord of lords, ignorant of life's goal, we do not understand how to execute religious duties, nor how to use wealth and material facilities, nor do we know how to achieve liberation. Despite our many disqualifications, you come to us out of your causeless mercy, both to fulfill the purpose of our worship and help us understand your glories and attain the highest salvation." Vishnu beamed. "Well said. Ask me for a benediction." Verses 10 and 11, the priest bowed his head. Lord, greatest of all benefactors, just by appearing here at saintly King Nabhi's sacrifice, you have bestowed on us the highest blessing. Great, pure-hearted, highly intellectual sages constantly sing your glories and thereby destroy the impurities in their hearts. By cultivating knowledge of they become detached from the material world and attain spiritual form like yours, including self-satisfaction. Yet even such elevated sages who are in spiritual bliss, when they discuss your glories, rarely see you in person. Verse 12, dear Lord, you are very kind to your devotees. Therefore, please help us, bless us to always chant your names and the glories of your form, qualities, and pastimes. From personal experience, we know that this is difficult when we are hungry, stumbling, sick, or in some other miserable situation. We habitually forget you. We think that moment, we think that without your mercy it will not be possible, and the Lord glanced over at the Brahmins. We think that without your mercy it will not be possible for us to remember you at the time of death, when there is a high fever. The Lord glanced over at the Brahmins, smiled graciously, and raised a graceful, bejeweled hand in blessing. Verses 13 and 14, the priest then indicated the king, "Dear Lord, here is King Nabhi. His ultimate desire is to have a son like you. He is like a poor man who approaches a millionaire and begs for just a palmful of grains. Although you can give him anything, even liberation to your spiritual abode, he has performed this sacrifice just to ask for such a son. This is not his fault. Your insuperable illusory energy eludes everyone in the material world except those who were your pure devotees." Suddenly the priest was seized with anxiety. Had it been an offense to summon Lord Vishnu to fulfill the king's material desire? Verse 15, with folded palms he said, "Lord, being dull-witted, we have interrupted your transcendental pastimes to invite you here for some paltry material reason. Certainly by so doing, we have offended you. We only hope that because you are merciful, you will forgive our offense." Verses 16 to 18, the priests along with Nabhi bowed at Vishnu's feet in a deep voice resembling the gentle rumbling of thunderous clouds. Vishnu said, "I am pleased with your prayers. You are truthful Brahmins. Your desire that I give King Nabhi a son like me is hard to fulfill. No one is my equal. Still, I wish to satisfy you since you are qualified with all Brahminical qualities. I consider you to be my mouthpiece, therefore your words should never prove false. I shall expand to become the king of Nabhi, son of King Nabhi. Please by offerings, the Lord, the Supreme Transcendence, has agreed to become my son." The chief priest said, "You are truly blessed. As your son, Lord Vishnu will set the example of how to execute religion in all the different stages of life: brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyas." So, we have finished chapter 3 today. Vishnu benedicts King Nabhi, and tomorrow we'll begin from chapter 4. Lord Rishabh appears. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.